Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Civista Bank Digital Banking Webinar for Businesses. We are going to get started in about 2 to 3 minutes. We're going to give everyone an opportunity to sign in, and while we are waiting, I am going to put up a poll. So if you give me just a moment, I will put the poll up so you can participate in it. All righty, just give me one moment, ladies and gentlemen. Here we go. You should be able to see the poll now. And if you will take an opportunity to share how long you have had a relationship with Civista Bank, we would love to see that. So we will be starting again in about 2 minutes, and would like to give everyone an opportunity to join in and have an opportunity to see the entire presentation. Good afternoon, everyone. If you haven't had an opportunity to participate in the poll that's on your screen, I would appreciate it if you would do it. This is Raymond Wheeler, and we want to welcome you to Civista Bank's Digital Banking Webinar for Businesses. We will get started here in just about 1 minute, and I will be introducing you to Donna Jaskolski, and we will get started. Hello, everyone. I want to thank you for joining Civista Bank Smarter, Brighter Digital Banking Webinar for Businesses. So if you haven't had a chance to participate in the poll, I'd like you to have an opportunity to do that right now. I will be ending the poll in about 15 seconds, and then we will begin our webinar. So we just want to get an idea how long you have had a relationship with Civista Bank. And we'll be ending the poll in about 3, 2, 1. All righty, excellent. So we are going to start off our digital banking business webinar by introducing you to Donna Jaskolski.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Vista Bank's Smarter, Brighter Digital Banking Demonstration. Thanks for joining us today. We're happy you're here to see our new digital banking platform and trust that you will find the navigation as user-friendly as many of our early testers have shared with us. I'm Donna Jaskolski, Vista Bank's Customer Experience Officer. Joining me today are several members of the team to help support your introduction to the new digital banking platform. Raymond Wheeler, our Learning and Development team, will be your host, and Chris Colbert, our digital banking expert, will be demonstrating the new site. We're excited to also have Brenda Leal, Alyssa Pickens, and Allison Breither from our digital banking team are here to assist you in answering some of your questions. We are excited to introduce you to what our team has been preparing for over the past 10 months. We value your opinion and look forward to hearing your feedback in the weeks ahead. I'd like to introduce you to your host, Raymond Wheeler. Raymond, take it away.
Thank you, Donna. Hello, everyone. Allow me to share with you the format for today's webinar. All the participants are going to be muted during the webinar. And I do want to advise you that this meeting will be recorded. We do encourage you to use the question and answer link at the bottom of your screen to ask your questions during the demonstration. Now, following the demonstration, we will address as many of your questions as possible during our time remaining. Some individuals of our experts will be able to answer some of your questions live during the presentation right in the Q&A itself. Now, before we begin the demonstration, I would like to share the results of our poll question that I asked you to participate in at the start of the webinar. Let's go ahead and take a look at that and see what it looks like. Here we go. So these are the poll results. And I can see that we have a pretty good mix of individuals that have been with us from less than a year all the way up to more than 10 years. And that's a testament to the loyalty of our clients at Vista Bank. And we want to thank you for being with us for either a short time or a long time. So thank you so much for that. We do appreciate you, and we hope that you enjoy this presentation, which we brought together and put together for your benefit. I'd like to start off by introducing you to Chris Colbert, our digital banking expert. Chris, you have the helm.
Raymond, thanks for that introduction. Welcome, everybody. Very excited to kind of go through this demonstration here today. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and we'll kind of jump in here. All right, the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to put in your user ID and password, and these are the same ones that you use today. Now, the first time that you log in, it is going to ask for a secure access code. You'll be able to see that here in a minute, and then you will be prompted to change the password. And again, that's just for the first time when you log in. So I'm going to go ahead and enter mine here. Okay, and as you can see, I've got several different options. I'm just going to go ahead and have it go ahead and text me that secure access code. Have the option to register or not register the device. I'm going to go ahead for my instance and say do not register that specific device. And now we come to the home screen. So there's kind of three main areas of this, if you will, if you think about this in columns. Over on the left side, this is going to be your navigation menu, navigation nodes, if you will. In the middle here, this is kind of where you're going to see your basic information about your accounts. You'll notice we've got some summaries as well. And then over kind of on the right column, these are what we call quick links. So if you had different files you needed to approve, or if you want to do transfers, move money, and that's kind of what these over here are. So as I start here today, I think we're going to focus kind of in the main part of the landing page here. You can see I've got a couple different accounts here. I've got a payroll, vacation funds, and operating. And again, this is kind of a test environment, but it's good to see that they made sure my vacation fund was the highest balance account I have. That usually doesn't work out for me the same in real life, but it's good to see we have that here. You're going to notice you have these 3 dots. These are the option buttons. Throughout the system, anytime you see those, okay, you're going to be able to go and do additional actions. So I'm going to start by go ahead and clicking on that. You can see I've got a list of different options. I can view activity. I can do a transfer. I can nickname an account. I can basically move to other groups, which we'll show you how to do that. And then I can go into my settings. To start off with, we're actually going to go down to nickname an account. Okay. And these are defined names if you would like to put more description. So for example, rather than just having this show up as account number 80, maybe I want it to be the payroll account. That way, without having to memorize a bunch of different account numbers, I know exactly what that specific account is used for. What you'll also notice, I have a global nickname and a personal nickname. Okay, so if you have multiple users in your business that get into online, you can actually leverage the global nickname. And what would happen is anybody that had access to this account number 80, when they first signed in, if I use the global nickname, would see it as payroll. Now, you as an end user, if you wanted to make that a little bit more specific, you could use the personal nickname. So again, if I want to just take off that A, maybe I just like it as payroll, I can go ahead and click save, and you'll notice that that name change is kind of almost instantaneous there. I'm going to go back into these more options here. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do some view activity. Okay, what this is doing, the system's going out there and it's actually retrieving the transactions for me. So if I was to scroll down, you can see I've got a transfer, I've got some regular checks coming through. It looks like there was some ACH payments for Amber's Cookie Shop, a couple different deposits. If I was to go ahead and click on a specific item, it's going to show me some additional details. It's going to show me the dates. It's going to also then show me, if it was a check, what the check number is. And for those physical items, this is where you'll go in and actually be able to see an image of that item. And you can see I have one of 2. I can basically look at the front and back of that. Now, if I look to the right of that transaction, you're going to see I have those more option buttons. If I click on those, I have a couple different options. I can toggle to details, which that's kind of where I'm already at, is expanded that view. I could print, and when I print, it'll actually show this transaction and the image, or I can ask a question. So for our purposes, we're going to ask a question. This gives you the ability through secure messaging to communicate with the Civista customer care team. So for example, I could say question on check. I could type that in there. And maybe it's on check amount. Okay. If I had an attachment, I could go ahead and attach any supporting documentation. Maybe this was supposed to be $17.60, whatever the case is, right? I was then to go ahead and send message. This is going to be received by the Civista customer care team. What's nice about this is they're going to be able to, when they receive it on their end, know exactly which transaction you're talking about. But they're going to see all the same details that you do, including that specific check image, what your message is, and any supporting documentation that you might have attached. We'll talk some more as we go through about the secure messaging feature, but this is just one application of it. Okay, I'm going to go back up here a little bit. I'm still in the search for transactions, if you will. Okay, what I have the ability then to do is I have the ability to filter down. So what you'll see as we go through this, we're going to continue to build the history. So at some point, we'll have up to 2 years worth of history before you go out there and be able to do research, find different items. That said, there's going to be times where maybe you want to narrow down that search. One of the ways to do it is time period. So for me, I'm going to go ahead and choose transactions this month. I could look for a specific description, or I could look for a transaction type. So in this case, let's look for credits. And maybe I'm going to look for credits based off a dollar. So in my case, I'm going to do from a penny to $10. I'm going to go ahead and apply those filters. And when I apply those filters, you're going to notice I now only see those specific transactions, those credits, if you will, that are coming through for the time period, which was this month, or that dollar amount between basically a penny and $10. So the filtering is just a way to narrow down and kind of restrict those transactions. You'll notice then I have this down arrow. This gives me the ability to export. So if I was to export this right now, I would only be exporting those transactions that I had filtered out. And I have a couple different options there. I can do an Excel spreadsheet file. I can do a CSV file, a couple different options for Quicken, QuickBooks. So if any of you out there are leveraging some of those, or if you download transactions for reconciliation or different accounting software, this is one way that you can go ahead and do that particular function. Okay. Just like before, if I go back to those options, I could actually print. And when I print, if I did in this case, just like when I exported, I'm actually going to be doing all 4 of these transactions. Another field that we have here is this detail and settings. Okay, so now we're no longer on the transactions. We're looking at the details of this specific account. So again, I can look at current and available balance, date of last deposit. If this happens to be interest bearing, I would see what my interest rate, accrued interest is. You'll notice throughout the system, there's a couple different ways to make the same changes. So if I wanted to, I could go ahead and click on this pencil icon, change my personal nickname there. It just comes down to a preference in which way you want to navigate through the system to make some of these changes. Okay. One thing I like to always point out, kind of remember, if you kind of get lost in the system, want to get out of a screen, just like when you're a kid, you can always go back home and I'll take you back to the beginning or the starting place, if you will. So I'm going to go back here to this payroll account. I'm going to go through some of the additional options that we have here. And this time I'm going to do a quick transfer. Okay. When I do a quick transfer from the account tile, the account that I'm on automatically defaults in as the from account. Okay. And then obviously I can pick my to account, put my dollar amount, and then again, I can choose whatever my transfer date is that I want to select. From here, basically, as long as I have the correct security level, I can go ahead and hit approve. So that kind of takes us through the main account setups, how we can kind of do that setup and do those changing. One thing you can do is create additional groups. So if I click and drag an account tile, put it into this little tray here, if you will, you're going to see that it creates a new group, right? Now with 3 accounts, I probably don't need a new group. But I kind of wanted to show you this just as a way. So I now have a group called accounts. I now have one called payroll. Where you might want to set this up is if you've got operating accounts, maybe you got some investment accounts. So I could set up a group called investment accounts, move those tiles into that. Or maybe again, I want to separate my deposit accounts from my loan. You can really click and drag and move these around. Let's say I want to change the order of this as much as I want to look at my vacation account. But honestly, maybe I want to see my operating account. So I can click and drag, move those tiles that way as well. So now we're going to go to the messages. And this is where we would actually have seen the correspondence with Civista customer care team. So when I ask an actual question about that specific transaction, this is where I would expect to see the response. Okay. The other thing that you're going to see as we come through there is we have the ability to set up different alerts, right? So one of the alerts that you can see out there is, I've got an account driven alerts based off of dollar amounts, for example. And what's nice about this is once I've looked at that alert, got that message I need to, I can just go ahead and hit delete, in which case then it's going to delete that message. So I always tell people, treat this a little bit like you would your email. You know, go in, look at the alerts, make sure you're cleaning those up from time to time as well. Okay, like I said before, there's a couple of different ways to do the same function. This time, instead of using the account, I'm actually going to go over here, navigate to the transfer, and do the move money. Okay, you'll notice since I wasn't on an account when I selected this particular option, I'm going to have to fill in both the from and to accounts. You notice I keep trying to fund that vacation account, put money in versus taken out right now. I could put the dollar amount. The one thing we have the ability to do on this screen that we didn't at the other account transfer level is to put a different frequency in there. So for example, if I know on the 1st of the month, I always want to move 50 cents from my payroll account into my vacation account, I could set that up to be reoccurring. You'll notice I can actually put an end date as well. So maybe I want that to continue until I'm going to take vacation, June 22nd or whatever the day is. I can then put a memo in here. That is optional, obviously, but when I put that in there, that will go ahead and it will show on my statements. If I look at my transaction history, that memo carries forward. Okay. One of the things that you'll also see with this is you're going to see that it has the ability to track pending and process funds transfers. Now, in this particular case, I don't have any transfers. I really haven't used the system to make a transfer, so I'm not seeing any of that history. What I am going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to change this basically to be a one-time transfer. I'm going to go ahead and make that 5 cents. Again, I can choose my transfer date, and I'm actually going to go ahead and approve this. So you can see that the transactions went through and went ahead and processed that. It's going to come back up and it's going to give me a confirmation. And you'll now see that I show that 5 cents having been processed. So I now actually have a history of the transactions or the money. Or this could be nice if you're like me sometimes, you're in the middle of maybe moving money between 3 or 4 different accounts, the phone rings, email comes in, whatever, I'm picking it up and I'm have to kind of think about, all right, did I actually move that money? You definitely could go into the account statements, inquire, see that as on the online transactions, or you could actually come into here and say, oh, yeah, here's where that transfer actually occurred. I'm going to go back to the home screen. Again, if you don't want to navigate through this, especially maybe if you're going to be using the mobile app, we do have these quick links where I can just say, hey, move money, takes me right to this screen, just saves you some navigation. But you can see it's going to look exactly the same. Again, based off of my security that I have to transfers, I'm going to see those transfers out there. Okay. The next option is to pay a loan. Now, one thing I want to say before we get into this, if you already have auto loan payments set up, this will not impact that. This is if you don't have auto loans, you want to make a loan payment, maybe you want to make an out-of-cycle loan payment, you're able to come in here. Again, I'm going to use my operating account. Okay, this particular case, I don't have a loan, but if I had a loan, it would let me select it. The one thing that I did kind of want to show you then is, your different payment types you have. You can do a regular payment, principal only. Additionally, you could make this a reoccurring as well. So if you wanted to do an additional, $200 every month of principal, you could set that up. And again, you can go ahead and put that description in there as well. Now, under the business management, this is only going to be for the admins out there of the company. So again, not everybody will have this manage users, but those of you that serve as kind of the admin role where you actually are managing your own users, this would be a function that you would have access to. So one of the first things that you can see out there is these are all my users. So I'm going to go ahead and choose Alyssa, and I'm going to go and edit on that specific user. Okay. You're going to notice that you're going to see a couple different things. I'm going to see personal details, first and last names, email addresses, phone number. I'm going to get just a little bit information about, the login. You can see the password change is required. Then if I was to click on this assign rights, okay, this is where I can go ahead and turn on and off different capabilities, different functions. So for example, if I don't want Lisa to have access to do check reorders, I could basically come in here and basically change those different features. I can go ahead and shut that off. I'm going to go ahead and save it. You'll notice now the check reorder has the line through it. And again, we've turned off all those different features for Alyssa. So this is the way you can kind of come in and validate and monitor what abilities they have to do different types of transactions. Let's say internal as well. If I wanted to, I could go ahead and change the approval limit. So to move money between different accounts, maybe we set listed a $50,000 limit. Going back across the top here, I do have the ability then to look at what accounts. This is kind of an important one for you company admins out there that may have a couple different users, right? So for example, maybe on the operating account, I can deposit, but I can't withdraw from. On the payroll account, maybe I need to transfer money into there. Maybe I need to be able to obviously withdraw if I was going to do, ACH payments or whatever through there. So I would leave that. All you have to do to change those settings is click on it. So check mark means they have the withdrawal rights. If I click on it again, withdrawals cannot be made now from the specific account. I would go ahead and click save. Not going to do that. I want Alyssa to still be able to do that. So we're going to skip back here to features. Again, these are just some of the things that you can control. So for example, with Alyssa, she's an admin, so we can manage users. We want her to have access to e-statements, but maybe I didn't want her to be able to make loan payments. So I would click that, hit save, and kind of take that particular function away from her. And then when she signed in, you actually would not see that ability to pay. And I'm going to lose changes. Again, I don't want to make those changes permanent that I was going through. This is where then you could also add a user. Okay. So again, I'm going to put in those first, last name, email address, login ID, password. Now, keep it in mind, just like I talked about when you sign on for the first time, that login ID will remain the same, but the user will be prompted to actually change that password. So even though you're filling it in here, the first time that you go ahead and assign that password, they will be prompted to change it. I would then save the user details. From this point, then it would bring me to that screen that we just covered, where I could assign the appropriate rights, accounts, can they do bill pay, all those different features. Okay, this is the online activity. Okay, so this is kind of a good screen to make note of. Again, it's going to show you the status of different types of transactions. So one of the things I like to show is this filter icon up here. Okay, and you'll notice when I do this drop down, I can look at funds transfer, stop payment. If there's any business out there interested in starting to do ACH would show up here. Wire, stuff like that. In my particular example here, all I have the ability to do is funds transfers and stop payments. I could obviously select, different dates ranges as well. But if I go ahead and I toggle to the details, what's nice about this specific screen is I'm going to get a date. I'm going to see, who created that, who authorized it, when it's going to process. Obviously, you can see the from and to account. Notice that those nicknames carried through. And again, this is just another example of where I think that's nice to have those, especially if you have quite a few accounts. Now, some of you may have all your account numbers memorized. Others, maybe like me, not so much. where that description really helps me say, oh yeah, you know what, that's exactly where I wanted to move that money. All right, to get out of the screen, again, I'm just going to go back home. Anytime you kind of want to get out of a screen, don't know exactly where to click, just go home and it kind of resets, for lack of a better way to put that. Okay. Under services, this is where I could do my check orders or put on my stop payments. Now, again, I kind of want to stress this is only for those individuals that have security and access to actually perform those functions. So if you remember when I was, in there on Alyssa's profile, and I was setting it up to, not order checks, had I actually made that change permanent, right, wouldn't have seen this order checks. Stop payments, obviously, a couple different options here. I could do a single check or multiple checks. I do have to select the account, right? Again, because we're looking for stopping a specific check. Let's say it's the payroll. I can do the check number. Again, if I was to switch that to multiple, this is where I do the starting and ending check number. So that's kind of really the only difference there. Check amount, check date, payee name, that's optional. But if I want that additional information, which I always believe more information is better than less, and then any notes I wanted to as well. So that's kind of where I go in and perform those particular functions. E-statements and notices. So I've got a link out there to be able to go look at my e-statements and different notices. One of the things that you're going to notice when I pull up this screen, right, I can look at, all accounts, or if I had multiple different accounts that had e-statements, I wouldn't be able to pick and choose those. I could create an account filter as well. Maybe I always want to just see the most recent 3 months worth. I can go to documents. So again, I could go to statements, other documents. You can see there's looks like a transfer notice, some different disclosures, and then again, I have my ability to do specific dates. So I think once you get into it, that's going to be fairly intuitive. Wanted to pass this on as well. We are looking at bringing over historical statements. I believe that it's going to be up to 18 months. And that is if you were on e-statements for that time period. Obviously, if you just signed up for e-statements within the last 90 days, that would be all the history we would have to bring over. Okay, now we're going to go into settings. And a couple of different things I want to show within the settings. I always like to start with alerts. So I'm going to go ahead and go into the alerts, and I'm going to go ahead and create a new alert. And one of the things within the new alerts is an account alert. So I can select a specific account. In this case, let's do the operating account, right? And I can basically say if the account balance, and in this case I'm going to use current balance, okay? And I want to know what that account balance is going to be. Let's say when the alert criteria is met, okay? So I want to receive an alert whenever the balance on this particular account is less than, again, keeping in mind, these are my test accounts. I'm going to say less than $10. Then I have the ability here to choose my method of delivery. So I can have this sent to me via email. I can do voice. I can do text message. I can actually even do secure messaging. A lot of times for myself, my personal preference is going to be, I'm going to do a text message. I'm going to put in that text number, agree to the terms and conditions, and create an alert. What's going to happen is then the system's going to basically notify me when that current balance falls below that $10 via text message. I'm going to go back to alerts. We got a couple different types of alerts. I want to make sure I kind of go through all of those. So I can actually do a history alert. And a history alert is going to really key off of transactions. So for example, I can, if I'm waiting for a specific check to clear, or I want to know when it is, I can say, hey, check number 1000 against my operating account clears. I basically want to receive, and again, same type of an options. look for description if I knew what the description was. Or again, if I used a credit transaction, I could put an exact dollar amount, or let's say that, I don't know exactly what it was, but ABC Properties is supposed to be paying me rent, and it should be a transaction more than $1,500 or something. So kind of multiple different ways to set up and do those alerts. The last one is these online transactions. This is one sometimes I see people set up. Doesn't really happen that often, but hey, you know what? If there's a check reorder against my operating account, because really probably maybe one or two people in the company the most would be doing this, I just want an alert on that so that I know those checks are getting reordered. Or quite honestly, if they get reordered and I wasn't expecting to, at least know that happened and be like, hey, what's going on here? So that kind of covers the alerts. Then we do have the security preferences. I could come into the security preferences. This is where I could, change my password. Or this is where I can add that secure delivery. So remember when I first logged in, I did that secure access code. This is where I can go in if I needed to maybe update, in this case, my cell number, or if I needed to add an email for delivery for that secure access code. All right, I'm going to skip back up here to account preferences. Again, couple different ways to do the same thing within the system. Let's say I wanted to change the naming of that at groups. I want to call it, let's just say I'm going to use my initials. I'm going to call it CK accounts, right? That's where I can basically go in. I'm going to go ahead and click on that, hit save. What that does then, when I go back into the online, rather than just saying accounts, that's now CK accounts, right? Keeping in mind, I showed you a couple different ways you could change those namings and those groupings. This is just another way to go in through settings and account preferences to do that. Notice I've got my operating account as well. If I wanted to, I can go in. This is where I could change that name of that. Maybe again, I want to call it CK operating. So that kind of covers what we wanted to talk about today. For those of you that do mobile deposit capture, that option will be available out there for you as well. You'd have a node for that, same way with the bill pay as well. So I'm going to go ahead and bring Raymond back on, and we'll open up kind of the Q&A process portion of our demonstration today.
Oh, thank you so much, Chris, for that excellent demonstration on the digital banking. What I'd like to do is I'd like to open it up so some additional questions. If you have some questions, please feel free to go ahead and put it in the Q&A now, and we'll get those questions answered for you right away. So I believe there's a question: can we receive an alert if a wire transfer has been rejected by receiving bank? Brenda, are you available to answer that question?
I am available, and Chris can help me if I'm wrong, but I don't believe so. We don't know until after we've put it into what we call Fedline Advantage, and then it comes back that way. It doesn't actually come back through the online channel. So there isn't an alert that talks all the way through that process.
Yep, that's correct, Brenda.
All righty, excellent. All righty, well, I guess you gave such an excellent presentation, Chris. Everyone doesn't have any questions. I guess you answered everything that they were thinking of. So well done. I do still want to thank everyone for joining us and taking out the time today to learn more about our smarter, brighter digital banking. We do hope that you enjoyed seeing the platform. We will be sending a follow-up email with a recording of today's session. And we do encourage you to visit the website. It is civista.bank/brighter-banking for more important dates and messages as we get closer to the June 9th launch. Let me share my screen with you so you'll have some information on how to contact your local branch. And as you can see, the digital hotline would be 844-944-5529. And of course, you can always contact your local branch if you need to. So feel free to take advantage of that number and the hotline if you have any questions. Again, I want to thank you, and I want to thank Chris for his presentation. Thank you, Brenda, for answering those questions. Thank you, Donna, for the preface into the banking for Civista on a digital format. And we will see you all out there in digital land. Thank you.